As a financial advisor, between my firm and I, we are collectively responsible for the safeguarding of hundreds of millions of pounds of clients' assets, thousands of people's life savings. It is my job to protect them against financial risks, which is easy to do if I have a lot of control over it. But there are some risks, like the one I want to talk to you about today, that I have no control over. And all I can do is educate my clients and equip them with the knowledge that they need to protect themselves. I am making this video today to raise awareness of what I think is the big financial risk that everyone is underestimating today. This is a risk that you cannot insure against, you cannot diversify away from. This will have happened to people that you know. But when it happens, it is so devastating, financially, mentally, physically, that people rarely ever talk about it. And due to the rapid development of artificial intelligence, I believe that we are on the edge of a precipice where this is all going to get so much worse. By the end of this video, you will not only understand why, but you'll also have the knowledge and skills to try and protect yourself against it. To help you appreciate just how destructive this is and how endemic it's becoming, I'm going to show you 3 examples, and each one gets crazier than the last. Let's start with a story about a couple. Let's call them Fred and Jemma. At the time, they were in their mid-30s. They'd been married for a few years and were looking forward to starting a family, but they decided to hold off until they'd bought a place of their own. As you may know, trying to buy your first home is an absolute minefield. Saving a deposit is like an uphill marathon, and then when you finally get to the finish line, you have to learn how to handle estate agents who only care about getting the deal done, solicitors with their endless legal jargon that makes it feel like you're missing something crucial, and then mortgage brokers who present numbers and options that are hard to fully grasp. What's most unnerving is that you're then expected to make the biggest purchase of your life after only having looked around it a few times. What if you miss something? What if you make the wrong choice? But finally, after a long search, Fred and Jemma found a property that they fell in love with. It was a perfect location and had more than enough room for them to start a family. And after a nervous moment of going to seal bids, they finally had their offer accepted. Fortunately, the valuation in the survey came back as expected, and then they were then ready to exchange contracts and pay the 10% deposit of £75,000 to their solicitors. Prior to the exchange, they received a call from their solicitor's office to say that they had sent them an email with the bank details. And because they were about to head out for the day, they wanted to confirm those bank details with them over the phone, which they did. Due to banking limits, Fred then made the payment over 3 days. And when he received the final confirmation email from the solicitor, they felt a huge wave of relief. After all of this time, saving for a deposit, the stress of looking for a property, finding one, bidding for it, and now they were finally over the line. I'm sure that many of you will know that feeling. The hope and optimism that you feel imagining your future in this new home. And for Fred and Jemma, that meant finally being able to start a family. But then, 2 days later, Fred got a call from his solicitor. Jemma was in the room at the time, and she can remember hearing Fred's side of the conversation. "What do you mean? There must be some sort of mistake. I sent you the money last week." Panicking, Fred opened his laptop to find the email with the bank details. He checked the email address that it had come from. There were no funny characters in it. The email had definitely come from the solicitors. He read off the bank details to the solicitor on the phone, who confirmed that those were not the correct details. Fred said, "No, there must be some sort of mistake on your end. Those bank details came from your email and your administrator called me to confirm them." Fred checked the call history on his phone. "I can see here that they called me on exactly the same number that I'm speaking to you now." All the solicitor could do was confirm that, from their side, none of this had happened. They did not send that email, they did not call him, and they did not have his money. At first, Fred had this sense of disbelief, a desperate hope that it was all a mistake that could be easily rectified. He began feverishly contacting the bank, calling the police, and reaching out to any authority that could possibly help. Each response, though sympathetic, delivered the crushing reality that his money was gone. Before I explain how this could possibly happen and show you some other examples of how artificial intelligence is literally changing the face of online financial scams, I first want you to appreciate just how deeply this affected Fred and Jemma. Fred paid £75,000, that's almost their entire life savings, into a scammer's bank account, and they never got any of that money back. In the months following the scam, Fred experienced a whirlwind of emotions. Anger was the most immediate. Anger at the scammers. at himself for falling for it, and at the system that seemed powerless to retrieve his money. Fred was consumed by a profound sense of failure and guilt. He felt like he had let his wife down and failed in his responsibility to protect her and their future. Every time he looked at her, he saw the same pain and disappointment reflected in her eyes. Their relationship became strained. They were both dealing with immense stress and anxiety, and it started to affect how they communicated with each other. Simple conversations would escalate into arguments. Fred began to experience frequent headaches and insomnia, lying awake at night replaying the events that led to the scam. Jemma too became more withdrawn and struggled with bouts of anxiety and depression. Financially, the impact was devastating. Without this money, their plan to buy a house and to start a family had been put on hold indefinitely. And the small flat in which they currently lived became a continual reminder of what had happened. There is no doubt that something similar will have happened to someone that you know. Perhaps it was not this specific scam, but some other type of online fraud. But you will probably not be aware of it because people rarely ever talk about this stuff. Before I started doing research for this video, I was aware of just one person that I know personally who has been the victim of a scam. But after asking questions, I had 8 people from my circle of friends and their families come forward to say that they had been victims too. And I bet there were even more who didn't want to talk about it. Financial fraud is a unique type of assault that leaves victims with such guilt and shame that it makes them want to bury it deep and never ever talk about it again. But if no one ever talks about it, it only means that more people are likely to fall victim. So how then did this happen to Fred? After doing some research online, Fred checked his email settings and found that a rule had been set up to forward all of his emails onto an email address that he did not recognize. This is a classic sign of a man-in-the-middle attack. A scammer had got access to Fred's email. This could have been because Fred had clicked a malicious link in a text message or an email and entered his password into a fake site. But its most likely cause was because he had been using the same password that he used for his email to log into multiple other online services. And when he checked this website, he found that his email address and password had been exposed in multiple data breaches. The scammers could have got access to his account months or even years ago, just lying there waiting for the best opportunity to attack. And when they started seeing emails to estate agents, they would have known what was coming next. As expected, when Fred received an email from his solicitor with the payment details, the scammers deleted the real email from his inbox and then sent Fred another email with different bank details. Often, this fake email will be sent from an email address that has slightly different characters to the real one, perhaps with an A in place of an O. But in this case, the scammer had spoofed the solicitor's email address so that as far as Fred could see, the email had actually come from his solicitor. Then after sending the bank details, the scammers knew that Fred would probably call his solicitor to confirm them, which would have outed the scam. Preempting this, the scammers called Fred first, pretending to be the solicitor's administrator. And again, they were able to spoof the solicitor's phone number so that when Fred saw the incoming call, he recognized the phone number as it was identical to the solicitor's. Many people are aware that it's possible for scammers to spoof a phone number to make it look like an incoming call or a text message is coming from someone else. They can even make the name of a company appear on the incoming call. However, very few people know that it is possible to do the same thing with an email address. Over the last 5 years, email security controls have got a lot better, to the extent that most security-conscious businesses, like mine, have put protections in place that should prevent scammers from being able to spoof our emails. But many other businesses, like this solicitor, are often not aware that you can do this, which means that you cannot trust incoming phone calls or emails, especially if it relates to money, even if the person on the end of the line sounds exactly like the person it should be. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you the essential steps that you need to be taking to try and protect yourself from financial scams. But before that, I want to show you why AI is going to make these scams so much worse. I found this software called 11 Labs, which costs $20 a month and allows you to clone someone's voice. I fed it a snippet of my voice and just listened to the clone that it created. With software like this, it's possible for a scammer to clone anyone's voice. They could then use it to call your spouse, your parents, or even your boss. They can make you appear to say anything they want. Because you're looking out for it, it's easier for you to tell that this is fake. But if you are caught off guard, it could be extremely convincing. Just listen to this story.
As you mentioned, I'm a practicing attorney in Philadelphia. and I was the intended victim of a scam using my son's voice. And here's the story. I was on my way to work. My phone rang. It was my son. He was crying. He said, "Dad, I was in an accident. I hit another car being driven by a pregnant woman. My nose is broken. They arrested me. I'm in jail. They assigned a public defender to me. His name is Barry Goldstein. You need to call him. You have to get me out of here. Help me." I said, "Brett, I'll call him and I'll call you right back." He said, "You can't. They took my phone. Help me, Dad." I'm a father. I'm a lawyer. My son's in trouble. A pregnant woman was hurt. He's in jail. I'm in action mode. Before I could do anything, my phone rings again. It's Barry Goldstein. "I just met with your son. He's hurt. He has a broken nose, but he'll be okay. He hit a car being driven by a pregnant woman. She was taken to the hospital. They arrested your son because he failed the breathalyzer test at the accident scene." I said, "Wait, my son would never drink and drive." He said, "Brett told him that, but he had an energy drink that morning, and that may have caused the failed test." He said I should take some steps if I wanted to bail my son out. I said, "Of course I want to do that." He said, "Well, I'll give you the phone number for the courthouse, and here's your son's case number. You should call the courthouse and bail him out." I immediately called the courthouse. They answer correctly. I tell them why I'm calling. They said, "What's your son's name?" They asked for the case number. They said, "Yes, your son's here. Bail was set at $90,000. You need to post 10%, $9,000 to bail him out, but there's a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" The county bail bondsman was away on a family emergency, and he's not available. He said, "But there is a solution. You can post what they called an attorney's bond." I said, "I'm an attorney." He said, "Yes, but you haven't entered your appearance on behalf of your son. There's a Mr. Goldstein that did that. You should perhaps call him back and try to get him to post an attorney's bond." Hang up, I call Mr. Goldstein back. "Mr. Goldstein, can you post the bond for my son?" "Yes." "You need to wire me $9,000. He said, "I'm a member of a credit union, so you need to take the cash to a certain kiosk, which will get the money to me. And I'm scheduled to leave for a conference in California. I'll be leaving to the airport in 2 hours, so you need to move quickly." I learned later that that kiosk was a Bitcoin kiosk that would convert the money to cryptocurrency. I hang up. All of these calls happened in 2 minutes. This is the first time I had a chance to think. I called my daughter-in-law and suggested that she call work and tell them that my son wasn't going to make it today because he was in an accident. A few minutes later, FaceTime call from my son. He's pointing to his nose. He goes, "My nose is fine. I'm fine. You're being scammed." I sat there in my car. I was physically affected by that. It was shock and anger and relief.
With the way that things are going, it is likely that at some point over the next few years, your parents or your grandparents or maybe even your kids are going to receive a phone call just like this. The pretense may be different, but it will be a call or perhaps even a FaceTime that sounds and looks just like you. It's also likely that they will have harvested so much of your personal information over the years that they will be able to weave this into a narrative that is so convincing that it will be almost impossible to see past. But scammers do not even need all of this technology to be successful, because our biggest weakness is that we are human, emotional, irrational creatures that are prone to making mistakes. And these scammers know so much about behavioral psychology that they can craft a narrative that pulls on all the right heartstrings by impersonating a figure of authority, preying on greed or desperation, and creating a sense of urgency. And it's not just individuals that will be targeted. In May this year, news broke that Arup, the multi-billion-pound, globally renowned design and engineering company, was scammed out of $25 million. They have not released the full details of what happened, but it's understood that the scammers impersonated several senior personnel, including the CFO, over a series of different Zoom calls, which culminated in a member of staff transferring $25 million to a scammer's account. Scammers are going to start with these high-value targets first, but as these techniques become more widely known, they will shift to easier, less prepared targets like you. This is why I think we are on the edge of a huge wave of AI-assisted financial scams which few people are prepared for. According to the UK Finance Society, in 2022, £1.2 billion was lost through fraud in the UK, with 3 million individual cases. That's enough to affect 5% of the population in a single year. To put this into perspective, in 2022, we collectively paid £12 billion into defined contribution pension schemes. So that's the equivalent of 10% of what we're putting into pensions each year being lost to fraud. And it's only likely to get worse. The thing that triggered me to make this video is that I recently received messages on LinkedIn from 3 different people, each of them asking to confirm if it was actually me they were talking to on WhatsApp. It wasn't me. You may have noticed that in the comment section of my videos, there are almost always comments being posted by bots that are trying to scam people. Either it's a fake conversation between a number of different bots, where one of them will eventually end up recommending a fake financial advisor, or they reply to one of your comments pretending to be me, encouraging you to message them on WhatsApp. Since the release of ChatGPT, I have noticed these bots become more and more sophisticated. And it's not just my channel that has problems with this. Every money-related channel on YouTube is targeted with this stuff, and YouTube seems powerless to stop it. I started this YouTube channel 4 years ago to try and help educate people about personal finance and equip them with the skills and confidence that they need to take control of their financial futures. And with your support and the help of some other great creators, we've been able to turn YouTube into an incredible resource of free financial education. YouTube, at its core, is an incredible resource, but you need to be really careful when using it. And it's not just in the comments section either. There are plenty of channels out there shilling questionable advice. Perhaps not fraudulent, but certainly misguided. And in the near future, there will be thousands of AI-generated channels spewing even more nonsense, and it's going to be hard to know what to trust. The problem is that anyone can say anything they want online without ever having the threat of being held accountable for it. Other than me, that is, because I'm a financial advisor. I am a regulated individual. You can find me on the FCA register, which means that unlike a financial journalist, I cannot just say what I want or put forward factually incorrect or one-sided arguments. I have to be so careful about the content that I make, so much so that my company has a compliance team that independently checks all of the content that I make to make sure that it is fair, clear, not misleading, and accurate. I have to jump through so many more hoops than other creators, which is why it takes me so long to make these videos. But on the flip side, I think that it's also one of the main reasons why my channel has been so successful, is that people know that they can trust the content that I put out. But being regulated also means that we take the security of my channel and the security of my viewers, of you, incredibly seriously, which is why I needed to create this video, to raise awareness about the real and ever-increasing threat of online financial scams and to equip you with the knowledge to defend against them. So, how can you protect yourself? Firstly, when it comes to my channel, be wary of the comments section. You should never blindly trust any comments that you find online, but now be even more wary because that comment could be a bot that is trying to scam you. Comments from me will look like this, and this is my only YouTube account. I want to be really clear on this. I will never contact you directly, nor will any of my team, whether that be through YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn. If you're looking for help with your finances and you want to find out more about working with us, the only way that you can get in touch is through the links in the description of my videos. Then, in terms of general online security, I want you to bring to mind the password that you currently use for your main email address. Do you use that same password to log into any other online service? If the answer is yes, you should assume that your email is compromised and you should change that password right now. I am being serious. This is likely the reason that Fred lost his life savings. Perhaps he used the same password to log into one of these companies' sites. Over the last few years, All of these companies have had data breaches where hackers have gained access to millions of usernames and passwords. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. You can use this website to check if your email address has been part of a data breach. As an example, my old email address has been involved in no less than 19 data breaches. I've left a link to this site down in the description, so please do check it out. If you care about keeping safe online, you have to use a different randomized password for every system that you log into. I use a password manager to help me manage this, so I actually only have to remember one password, so it's much easier than it sounds. Even when the people that scammed Fred got hold of his password, they would still not have been able to get into his email if only he had set up two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication means that when you try and log into a service, once you have entered in your password correctly, they will ask you to verify your identity via a second method, normally by sending a code via a text message or perhaps by using an authenticator app on your phone. You need to make sure that you have this enabled for every service that offers it. One of the most common scams is where they send you a text that looks like it's come from a courier, like Every or the post office, and then asking you to click on the link to rearrange a delivery. So many people fall for this scam and end up giving away personal data that leaves them open to future scams. So be extremely wary of clicking links in text messages, even if it seems to come from a legitimate source. As in Fred's case, you cannot trust incoming phone calls either. If the call is in any way related to money or you are suspicious, politely hang up the phone and call the person back. If you don't have their number saved, either go to their website or even better, go to the FCA register where you can see their contact details. As for emails, most security-conscious companies, like mine, have enabled settings on their email domain that should prevent their email addresses from being spoofed. But there are many businesses out there, like Fred's solicitors, that have not done this. Although most scams involve much simpler tactics where they change the letters of an email to hope that you won't notice. So again, you should always be very careful when clicking on links in emails, even if you think it has come from someone that you know. The other thing you should know is that all of these points are also relevant for businesses. Every year, thousands of companies' email addresses get compromised and are then used to scam businesses and their customers. Over the coming years, there is going to be a relentless onslaught of highly sophisticated AI-assisted scams. So at all times, keep in mind that if you ever find yourself in a position where you're on a call or an online meeting with someone and you notice that that person is trying to use authority, emotion, a sense of scarcity or current events to try and create a sense of urgency that leads to a conversation about money, even if they look and sound like the person that you think it is, hang up the phone, stop and think, and then either call them back via a verified number or reach out to a colleague or a family member who can help you verify their identity. And of course, if you ever hear anyone mention cryptocurrency, it is almost certainly a scam. If you have got this far in this video, I am sure you appreciate that if we want to try and prevent more people ending up like Fred and Jemma, it is so important that we spread this message. So please share this video with your children, your parents, your colleagues, anyone that you think that needs to hear it. And stay safe out there. I'll see you soon.